day, and welcome to yet another Star Trek podcast. I'm Brad, your host for the segment, followed by my lovely cohort, Drew. How you doing, buddy?
It's Brad for the segment.
For the segment. I know, I got to change it up a little bit, you know?
I appreciate it, man. Look, I mean, we're recording on Friday, so TGIF, but as you and I both know, maybe the listeners don't know this, but I do not have the best work schedule, and I will frequently not have a quote-unquote Friday like everybody else has Fridays. But this week I have Friday like everybody else.
But you do today.
Pretty nice about it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, is today your Friday?
Today is my Friday, yes. I am a traditional Monday through Friday type of chum. So I'm sorry to rub that in.
Well, it's okay. You know, it is the life I chose. Hooray, shift work.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I don't hate my job so much that I want to jump off of a cliff. And, former occupation that you and I shared once upon a time. Well, that's certainly how I felt on a daily basis. So,
well, I'm happy you're not feeling like you want to jump off a cliff.
How are you?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Having a 7-month-old baby is very exhausting.
You know, if Majid were here, he would say something along the lines of, Brad, how long are you going to use that as an excuse?
Oh, I'm sure of it.
But he's not here. So I'm going to say I'm really sorry, man.
I appreciate it. For a second there, I was going to be like, oh, I think he's going to channel Majid and just use the Majid powers.
What, you mean the powers of gaslighting?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I couldn't do that to my buddy.
Oh, that means a lot. I appreciate it.
You're
Well,
welcome.
loyal listeners, we are here for yet another episode of Picard. Not TOS, but Picard. We have 2 episodes, actually, in fact.
Yeah.
Dominion and Surrender.
Yeah, we're going to hit episodes 7 and 8 of season 3 of Picard. And we are getting down to the wire. There are only 10 episodes in the season.
I know.
And then the series is over.
Yep. There's potential. I guess there's potential replacement series. There's going to be more Star Trek TV shows on its way. I think you mentioned is the was it Starfleet Academy type thing?
Yeah, they've greenlit a Starfleet Academy show, which they haven't announced any official cast members or anything of that nature, but it seemed like they were hinting that Tilly would be a part of that in the last season of Discovery. So I'm curious to see if that still holds true. I know the actress that plays Tilly had some other acting opportunities outside of Star Trek that she was pursuing for a while. I don't know if she's planning on coming back or not.
Not that I dislike Tilly. I do dislike that dystopian future that Discovery is left in.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be taking place in said dystopia.
I mean, of course, I'll probably watch it. I'll give it a chance, but I'm gonna do so in the hate watching aspect of things.
Just like seasons 1 through 4 of Discovery.
In Discovery's defense, 1 and 2 did have certain highlighted moments.
Yeah, no, season 2 was great, and I really liked season 1 as well.
Lorca and Pike were
Tremendous.
phenomenal.
I agree.
However, some of the other plot points. What was the guy's name? Ash, I think his name was.
Ash Tyler.
Ash Tyler. I didn't care for the character.
I liked him. I didn't have a problem with him. I liked, generally speaking, I liked all the characters. I just didn't care for how a lot of them were handled.
That's fair.
In any case, we'll have to make a special episode of Discovery bashing.
I know. But I also heard that there's going to be a Section 31, which is potentially going to be pushing forward. And I heard a rumor that apparently they're looking to do something with Star Trek Voyager, doing not like a reboot, but more of getting the band back together, just kind of like this one.
Oh, that's the first I've heard of the Voyager one. The Section 31 show has been discussed for years, so that's really nothing new. But it's just been rumors. Have they made any sort of an official announcement from Kurtzman at this point?
No, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing official.
The only one that was officially announced, as far as I'm aware, is the Starfleet Academy one. But as far as Section 31 goes, there was a lot of speculation that Ash Tyler and Empress Georgiou
Mhm.
would be a part of that. And, with why can't I remember her name, Brad? Michelle Yeoh.
Okay.
Michelle Yeoh. It took a second. With Michelle Yeoh winning an Oscar and being, the most popular female lead in Hollywood at the moment, it should be interesting to see if they're able to still land her. But as far as the Voyager show goes, this is the first I've heard of it, so I'm kind of curious. Prodigy, in a lot of ways, was an extension of Voyager.
I know you keep mentioning I should watch it, and I'll give it a go someday.
I think if you, I think you need to give it a few episodes. I think if you watched one episode, you'd be turned off. I would say you need to give it 5 to 6 episodes.
Which I watched the first episode and was turned off.
Right. So there you go. But it's a really charming show. And I think that as long as you consider the target audience of Prodigy, and just kind of keep that in the back of your mind and don't let that sway your opinion too much, I think you'll be really surprised at how good the quality of the writing is. Janeway is a major part of it, and there's some other surprises in there as well, which I will not reveal. But it is a well-written show that is thought out and really, I feel, captures the heart of what Star Trek is, but for a younger audience.
I think I was reading an article the other day with Picard. The reason why season 3 is kind of more favored is that it's kind of like a passing of the torch episode or season, where just like how Bones showed up in the first episode of TNG at the end of it, he was like passing that said torch to the TNG cast kind of thing. And I think looking at how TNG and Deep Space Nine kind of continue, and then how DS9 and Voyager did, it seemed to be like a continuous thing of passing that torch along into the other shows. And I kind of feel like with Picard season 3 that they have this mixed crew of sub characters that are not like clearly important enough as the TNG crew to get too many lines, but they're in there in a point to kind of maybe pass that torch along. And so you could technically see maybe Shaw showing up again in another Star Trek series. And honestly, I mean, I don't want to get into the 2 episodes yet, but the way Shaw has been portraying since we first got introduction to him, I would be okay with watching that show.
I have been a big fan of Captain Shaw since maybe episode 3 or so. Like episode 1, like what a complete asshole. But you start to see little by little why he is the way he is, and the fact that he really does give a crap about his crew. He's not just an egotistical captain. He just has a different way of doing things. So big fan of Shaw. And there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about something that people are referring to as, quote, Star Trek Legacy, which Terry Matalas has been acknowledging as something that he too would like to participate and do. And the idea behind that is taking the characters like Jack Crusher and then the 2 LaForge sisters, 7 of 9, Captain Shaw, and then maybe a few others, and get them in the mix and use their more famous TV parents to help launch the show as they have been this season and carry on the legacy.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
I think that could be a lot of fun in the right hands with the right writing. And then you could use that as a way to occasionally bring in characters like Geordie LaForge,
Mhm.
Beverly Crusher, even Patrick Stewart, if he's interested in participating once in a while.
Well, assuming he's alive at the end of the season, right?
Well, yeah, that's fair. They do have this habit of killing off Jean-Luc Picard for some reason.
Yeah.
So.
But you know what? Speaking of the LaForge sisters, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see them keep the real daughter.
Yeah.
And like she's still there, and I was honestly like I was kind of initially anticipating when they first brought her in, and we realized it. I was like, oh, she's probably just gonna be here for one episode, and they're just gonna be like, no, you're gonna stay on the station. But they've been keeping her in, and I was actually pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I had a feeling that she might be a cameo, but she is not, and I'm glad to see that because I really enjoyed her character. I think she's doing great.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's start out with Dominion. This is Picard Season 3, Episode 7. We start out with the Titan hiding in the Chintaka scrapyard. Do you remember the Chintaka system, Brad?
No, I don't. I absolutely have no memory of that.
All right. So allow me to put my nerd cap on for a second. The Chintaka system is where two very large battles in the Dominion War were fought. Do you remember the episodes of Deep Space Nine where they had those space turrets that like just destroyed the fleet?
Yeah, I do remember
that was Chintaka. So the Titan is hanging out in the debris of that battle. And they're with like minimum power, trying to stay stealthy. And 7 of 9 is on the phone with Captain Tuvok. She's trying to see if there's any information on where Riker is at.
They're doing some IP masking and VPN trickery in that whole situation.
7 of 9 has increased her NordVPN subscription to the maximum level.
Clearly doing what is a mesh network, they call it, I guess.
I don't know. This is out of my scope. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was good to see Tuvok. I really love the guy.
Tim Russ, a tremendous actor. Was really happy to see him. Unfortunately, is short-lived. As Shaw and Tavine are analyzing Tuvok's voice, they start to notice some abnormalities in his speech patterns. They think that it's him, but they're not 100% sure. And 7 starts asking some qualifying questions. And she does ultimately decide that this is not Tuvok. This is a changeling. And sure enough, that is the truth.
Yeah. I'm worried, man. Like, I hope they do like a reveal at the end, like Tuvok's alive, but yeah, I'm worried about him, man.
The changeling implies that he's either been severely tortured or killed. We don't know for certain, but he ends up changing his face to match that of Riker, and then mocks Picard and says that Riker is as good as dead.
Yeah, unfortunately, that seems to be the case.
Yep. So we start out the episode proper in the conference room. Picard is asking about Worf, and Geordi tells him that Worf and Raffi have gone off to do some scouting of their own and try and find Riker. But they're also running out of time because Frontier Day is right around the corner. So Bev is just trying to figure out the moral quandaries of whether or not she could develop a virus once again and commit genocide. She wants to target the species based on their biology. She's thinking about the virus that they use in the Dominion War to ultimately get the changelings and the Dominion to surrender. And, she's flat out honest about it. She's like, I'm a doctor. I took an oath, but our backs are against the wall, and if it's going to be me or them, I would at least consider it.
Yeah, and I guess that's the big whole is this the right thing to do type of aspect of it. And it's this kind of whole thing. It's do you need to do this to save yourself? Is that then okay to justify that.
Right. I mean, it's a very deep philosophical conversation can be had with this. It's like if a species is trying to commit genocide on you, is it okay to genocide them first?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, where do you draw the line? And to his credit, Picard tells her to do the research, but they'll deal with that if and when it becomes necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he's like, hold that thought, but let's keep it in the background, you know?
Yeah.
And they still don't know how Picard's involvement in Frontier Day is at this point. You know, they mentions that they need genetic verification of his identity. So they're thinking that maybe the body of Picard that was stolen from Daystrom is a way to combine his DNA with Jack Crusher's DNA and make the perfect genetic double of Jean-Luc. But they don't really know because, you know, it seems a little weird. And as Beverly points out, they both have unique DNA of their own. They don't need the relatives to complete an incomplete sequence.
So, you know, it's one of those situations where I'm kind of worried that they wrote a plot point, but they don't know how to like write themselves out of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering that too. And you know, we don't really get too many more answers in the following episode, do we?
No, not. We got more questions.
We got a lot more questions. So Data is hanging out in sickbay, or the amalgamation of what Data is, and they've been trying to work on him to get him up and running. They bring Data out of stasis and starts speaking with Data's voice, recognizes Jean-Luc as the captain. He recognizes Geordi. Then all of a sudden, Lore jumps in and is like, hey, it's me. I'm going to kill you all.
Yep. I mean, that's not ominous at all.
No. But they start diving into the different personalities of Data, Lore, B4, Soong, and they're talking about how it's all partitioned off, and this is going to come into play more in the next episode.
I'm a little confused because I thought in the previous episode they said he's got 4 personalities, but in this episode they're like, oh, he's only got the 2 personality, but the memories of B4 and Alton Soong.
So I think they did clarify that previously, and they're just kind of like expanding on the definition, because from what I understood, Data and Lore were the dominant personalities, while B4 and Alton Soong were more supporting cast. Yeah. So it's like 60% of the personalities, or even 80% of the personalities, were split evenly between Data and Lore, and while the other remaining percentage was split between B4 and Soong.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This whole thing is
it's all weird.
Yeah, it's love-hate.
Yeah. Well, long story short, they don't want to lose Data, and they need to make sure that they don't accidentally trigger something that would cause Lore to take over the partitions, because if Lore takes over Data's partitions, Data could be lost forever.
Which would be bad.
It would be. And we're going to put a pin in that, because that might be a plot point later on. Back on the Shrike, Vadic is reaching out to her creepy face superior guy, girl thing. I don't know what it is. But the face is threatening Vadic and telling her that she's got to step up and bring them Jack Crusher. Because
she dies.
Or she dies, yeah. It's like basically Vadic is expendable.
So like I'm guessing that like those guys are probably more changelings.
It's unclear, but it's kind of the vibe that I had. But then later on, when we find about Vadic's, backstory, it seems to imply that that's not the case.
We'll see.
I guess. Let's see here. Jack starts noticing that there's something wrong with him, and he tries to explain it, but he really can't. And he's constantly offering to just let himself be turned in so that he could save Riker, save the crew. And Picard is just like, no, you're not doing that. That doesn't make any sense, Jack. But anyway, out of nowhere, the Shrike appears and attacks the Titan.
Well, no, it doesn't attack the Titan.
Oh, my mistake.
Because it was the crew of the Titan is like, hey, we got to come up with a plan to get things taken care of, and then it cuts to like something like of a battle where the Titan and another ship fought. It says there was like a Vulcan warship, and then like the Titan's just floating. And so the Shrike can't really identify life signs, and so they decided to board. I guess the question I have is, where the freak did they come up with a Vulcan warship like the last possible second? Was this like one of those archive ships?
I think it was implied that it was the remnants of a ship from the Chintaka battles.
Okay,
but I could be wrong.
Who knows?
I don't know. It's irrelevant. Anyway, Vadic and company hop on some shuttles and they board the Titan. And she starts ordering her crew to go and find them and hunt them down and trap them. And Jack starts trying to lead them through some corridors, and he runs into Sidney LaForge, and they actually manage to trap some of the boarding party behind force fields.
You know what this reminded me of? Alien 3, when they're trying to lead the alien into the pit.
Yes.
And then they
100%.
fail.
Yep.
And just like that, they failed here too.
As you do, right? But they end up getting stuck in a force field together with bad dudes on both sides of them.
So it was Jack and
Sydney.
Which is Sydney.
Crash.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's see here.
They do. Vadic ends up finding Picard and Crusher in sickbay,
right?
And she gets captured.
Yeah, and Vadic is just chilling in a force field in the middle of sickbay.
She's telling her backstory, being like, "Hey, this is what's going on."
Can we talk about this for a second?
The monologue that no villain should technically be doing.
Correct. First of all, holy crap. Let's talk about how great Amanda Plummer is.
Oh, so you see now.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thoroughly impressed with her all season. But up to this point, I've really not been aware of her as an actress.
Oh yeah, she's really good. And
she's tremendous.
And the backstory for her character is in essence kind of very tragic.
Oh, super tragic. And like, I think that's what makes her a great villain, in all honesty. The characters that have these dark backstories and they have a moral justification for why they're doing the things that they do, that they believe to be right. It's shades of gray. It's not black and white, And to her people, she might be a hero. And
so it's kind of funny in a sense, in a very sick sense, I should say, that from Vadic's perspective is that the Federation is the true villain, the ultimate torturer.
Right.
Whereas the Federation is, it looks at them as the true villain, the ultimate, killers of taking over and trying to dominate their whole, galaxy.
Exactly. So they both have the same opinion of each other from different perspectives, basically.
And it turns out that the Section 31, it was Section 31, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're the ones that developed the virus, and then they captured some changelings, and Vadic has scars on her face because she was tortured in a lab and experimented on.
And she took the shape of her tormentor.
Yeah, she did. Really sick and twisted segment, in my opinion.
Very so, very so.
And heartbreaking in a lot of ways, too. But really strong performance by Vadic, or by Amanda Plummer. And ultimately, she ends up escaping when Data starts taking over the Enterprise.
But it was
or I should say Lore.
Lore,
It was
yeah.
Lore. Yeah, Lore is fighting back. and he starts taking over all the ship's systems. And while he's doing that, the force field that Vadic is in drops, and she goes morphing up an air pipe.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, Vadic manages to make her way to the bridge. Now, it's also worth mentioning here that there comes a point where with Jack Crusher and Sydney, they get separated when the force fields go down, and they're separated by their own force fields. And Jack, like, it's not really a mind meld. It's like red eyes to red eyes, and he takes over her brain in a way that he can basically do things that, for her, and she mimics them. Right.
Let's be honest. He Charles Xavier's her.
Is that what that is? Like, I was thinking of the Futurama episode where Leela is being the wrestler for, against Bender, and she's like,
I mean, if you think about it, in truth, Professor X is his dad. So,
oh my God, I can't believe you went there.
Oh, Majid would be proud.
Yeah, but he's not here, so he'll never know.
Clearly.
But that was pretty cool. Any thoughts on Jack's superpowers?
It was, it's funny. It's like, it's getting to another point where I am enjoying it, but I'm concerned that they've written themselves down this plot point and they're not going to get out of it.
Yeah, it does seem a little convenient and weird.
We still don't have answers on the red door that he's seen or anything like that. Even after the next episode too, we don't.
Well, that's where they used it as a cliffhanger. But
yep. But still, it's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm wondering if when we see it, are we going to be happy, or is it just going to be like sad trombone?
I remain optimistic. So far, this has been a very enjoyable season, and I would like to think that they will not ruin it on episode 9. So after that fight, though, Vadic jumps on the bridge and she takes over. She has Shaw beating the crap out of in a turbo lift, and Seven tries to shoot her with a phaser but misses. And Vadic is in charge of the Titan, and she speaks on the intercom and demands that Jack Crusher come to visit her on the bridge and says, "It's time you learned who you truly are."
And so Jack and Sydney are in sickbay with Crusher and Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Geordi and his other daughter are with Data/Lore in some other area. Mm-hmm. And then Seven, Shaw, and the main bridge crew are up there. And I guess there's probably crew scattered around the ship. And things do not look good.
And that's where the episode ends.
I have to say, I was really happy with this episode, the way the direction went and how everything transpired.
Yeah. Very good episode, I think. It really hinged for me on the performance of Amanda Plummer in sickbay with that monologue, and to some degree her performance on the bridge when she finally had control of the ship. There was just this confidence in her character in both that was very striking, I feel. And big fan of her performance, and I'm really into the character of Vadic. But even the stuff with Geordi and Data was enjoyable. I'm sometimes Brent Spiner can be a little too Brent Spinery for my taste. You know what I mean?
I get that.
And he's been kind of walking that fine line so far. I'm concerned that he may jump that shark, but he hasn't quite yet, but he's gotten pretty close in the past 2 episodes.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from that.
Most notably, though, there's no Riker and no Troy in this episode, despite both of them getting locked up in the previous one.
Didn't they show up for like a second in this episode?
Well, Riker's face was on screen briefly when Tuvok turned into him. But that was it.
Fair.
So, But yeah, I mean, after this episode, how'd you feel? Like, do you think, were you excited to see where they went next, or were you kind of rolling your eyes
I
at the
was
whole
I
Jack
was
story?
really excited, but I mean, I was kind of I was rolling my eyes at the come on guys, you expected them to board your ship and not take over.
Yeah. I think their plan just backfired. They were going to try to ambush them, and I think they just weren't good at that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get it. Just to me, it was like one of those things. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Right. I would agree with you. Let's start talking about surrender. So, we're back again on the Titan, and Vadic is looking awfully comfortable on the bridge. She orders her followers to take the crew's eyes, and she doesn't mean literally, she means lock down all the controls of the ship.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then she's like, take their ears, and she doesn't mean literally, she just means shut off the communications.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, take the very road ahead of them. And she doesn't mean literally, she just means close the doors and lock them.
Yeah, no literal things of here, but just more figuratively.
And then she gets her goons, her hired goons, to go in and start shooting some of the remaining crew that's scattered around the ship. And she leaves the comms open so the bridge crew can hear them scream.
So you know what? I'm gonna say it because this kind of bugged me in the beginning. She knew Picard and Beverly were in the sickbay. Why did she not send somebody to sickbay?
That is a valid question, and I would only surmise that she believed that they had already moved on from sickbay. She was like, maybe, well, they're not going to stay there, so why am I going to waste resources like looking for them? That's a guess. That's me like really stretching the taffy.
You really are. You dropped all the straws and you're just trying to pick one up.
Well, I mean, it's the biggest one.
The other thing too is a critique is that she monologued too much in this episode.
Well, I mean, that's what villains do, man. They monologue because they think they have the upper hand and then they die. Think about it. Hans Gruber did it. You know, the Alien did it from Alien. All the great villains.
Not that I want to see her to kill like all the bridge crew or anything, but I mean, come on.
Negan did it. You know, like that whole scene felt very Negan Walking Dead to me. But we'll get there.
Yeah. Continue, sir.
So, even though, so Picard and Crusher are still in sick bay, and they got Jack with them and Sydney, and Jack starts like eye glowing and doing his Professor X stuff, and he is actually able to like get in the head of a security officer who is, you know, trying to find his squad, and he sends this guy running through the hallways, gun in hand. But he's quickly dispatched and killed by one of Vadic's goons.
I mean, hey, expendable Starfleet, right?
This was the epitome of red shirt.
Yep.
In this moment,
it was.
You would think that like if I had sudden control over somebody like that, I wouldn't go like barreling down the hallway. I would like sneak.
Yeah.
Super stealth.
At least to try to mask yourself, but nope.
Right.
It's just full throttle, man. Full throttle.
Yep.
And you know, the other thing too is Jack didn't even feel bad.
No, he's just like, let me do it again.
Yeah, pretty much.
In any case, Vadic jumps up on the comms and she's like, Jack Crusher to the bridge on the double.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, over on the Shrike, which is completely empty of all Shrike crew for some reason, Riker and Troy are in the same.
There's a few there.
Yeah, there's like one. There's like 2.
No, there's two.
This is like
2.
this is like when you leave your teenagers home when you go out for a date, and you hope that they don't have a party and burn the house down. That's what they left. So Troy and Riker have a heart-to-heart, and they start basically hashing through all of their depression and despair for the past however long it's been since Thad died. And they finally understand each other. They come to an understanding and agreement, and they get through their pain, and now they're on the same page again, and they're glad to be back together.
Mm-hmm.
And none of this felt like normal to me. I don't know how you felt, because we've never gotten this type of relationship from them before. And while I think that it's certainly possible that they got to this place, it seems like we've missed a lot of the in between.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is that like there's so much history is passed between the characters, and they're trying to cover all these small plot points, but yeah.
And like the other thing too, and I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing, but the character Deanna Troi in the entire run of Next Generation was pretty poorly written. Mm-hmm. And we know that Marina Sirtis is a much more charismatic actress who is capable of way more. And the Troi that we get in season 3 of Picard feels like an extension of her personality, not an extension of Troy's personality.
Yeah.
And like, I'm kind of conflicted on that, because it doesn't feel like the same character to me. But I think for Marina, I think it's probably a hell of a lot more fun to play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of torn.
I know it didn't feel like fully genuine, I guess.
Yeah. It felt like an interpretation of a character.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I remember seeing her on Voyager, and I loved the character being on Voyager, and it felt distant from what I remember.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to bring more of her into the character of Troi, and try to reshape that character a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, they have their heart to heart, and then we go back to the Titan, and Vadic continues with her verbal assault.
Jack's prepared to give himself up again.
This kid, like, at this point, just let him give himself up, right?
Yeah, you know what? Like, I think that's the thing is, like, they're like, oh, we got to protect Jack, and I'm like, dude, like, you guys are already caught. Like, just give him over. Buy some time for the crew. Honestly,
right? It's kind of silly, but anyway, they refuse to give Jack up, and Picard makes a very good point. He's like, well, what happens when Vadic gets you? She's going to take you away, and then she's going to blow up the Titan and kill everybody on board.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack seems to think that he's supposed to just jump in the Great Link or something, but Picard explains to him that it's not really about that. It seems to be more about seeking revenge, and he thinks there's something more sinister going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jack seems to think he can get to the bridge and take control of it using his mind powers. And, as Vadic starts to count down to the end of her ultimatum, where she says, after 10 minutes, I'm going to start killing crew. One of the crew members gets absorbed by Jack's mind powers and starts typing in some access codes, trying to be all stealthy and stuff, except Vadic is like literally right in front of the guy.
I know. And it was so obvious too. It's just like the hands up and everything, and he's typing away.
Yeah. Like it was really poor. Like, what were you expecting?
Mm-hmm.
What were you expecting? So Vadic starts giving a pretty lengthy speech, and she acts like she's going to kill Mura. But then, she turns about face and she shoots the Vulcan instead, Tavine, and just vaporizes Tavine on the spot.
At first I was like, oh, they'll probably just shoot somebody, and then like, oh, I'm still good. It's just a flesh wound. And then that happened, and it was like, nope, that's not them be the case.
Nope. It's final. Tavine's dead.
No, I don't really like. I recognize her from the show, but like to me, it's just like I don't really have any attached feelings to her death or anything.
No, I would agree with that. None of the bridge crew really have been fleshed out. You know, there's definitely side pieces, and that's okay. Like it's fine, but there was no impact to it.
Mm-hmm.
Riker and Troy are back on the strike, and they start trying to come up with a plan to escape. And when one of the Vadic's crews opens the door, and they start fighting with the guy, but then out of nowhere, Worf like just shoves his blade right through his chest and then vaporizes him.
So, I mean, to me, I was like, why didn't you just vaporize him in the beginning?
Well, because it's cooler to stab him.
For the special effects, for effects. I get it.
But it's also cooler.
No disagreement there.
Like, I know what you want from me, man.
You're like, I didn't write the show. Stop.
Yeah.
Just get off my back.
Yeah, get off my lawn, Brad. Worf starts looking around the ship with Riker and Troy, trying to see if they can figure out what exactly it is that they want with Picard's body. They come across Raffi, who's also on board looking around too. Turns out that they had a cloaked shuttle, and they were able to board the Shrike unnoticed. They found the body of Jean-Luc. They started making some scans, and they found that they were trying to do something with Picard's body in regards to the aromatic syndrome. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, they took out parts of his body, like his
Right.
parts of his brain and stuff, and they don't know why. So
Yeah,
I would
so the
assume
mystery
maybe,
continues.
well, I think from what they're indicating is that wasn't actually the situation that was going on. He didn't really have the what was it called?
Aromatic syndrome.
They didn't really like. He doesn't really seem to have it, or it's something. It's something. It seems to indicate that it may be something else.
Okay,
And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from it. And they just have other plans for it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that what they're trying to do is some sort of mind linking for all of humanity and kind of do the exact same thing what Section 31 did to the changelings. Whereas like they implemented some sort of disease and to wipe out the changeling. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to use Jack to do some sort of mind thing to transmit a disease to all of humanity. Or at least everybody who's there during First Contact Day.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure, but that could be it. Well, let's see here. What else is going on during this whole thing? Oh yeah, Data and Lore start fighting in the Matrix.
You know, I have to say, Drew, oh my God, these two episodes have so much more going on in them than like entire seasons of Star Trek, it feels.
Yeah, they crammed a lot into these two episodes. I feel like the pacing kind of got rushed here in these past two episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And had they even if they had like maybe a 12 episode run, I think it would have been a huge improvement, because there's a lot going on here, and somebody realized, oh crap, we're running out of time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Data and Lore are like fighting inside like the white space of the Matrix, and Lore is trying to take over Data's partition, and Data just starts like willingly giving him all of his quote unquote memories, but they're like as objects. So like he has the memorial for Tasha Yar. He has the pipe from Sherlock Holmes and the cap from Sherlock Holmes. He has Spot the cat, which he just hands over to Lore, and Lore starts taking all these possessions of Data's. But ultimately, none of this like actually lets Lore succeed, because they're not Lore's memories. They're just objects. And Data somehow uses this as a way to turn it around and take over Lore himself and become the dominant and sole proprietor of the android body.
So the I think the premise is that he's giving him his memories, and he knows that Lore will not delete them. And because he doesn't delete them, in essence, like he's becoming the trophies, and he's becoming Data in essence, allowing him to take over entirely.
That's a good way to put it.
Because if you think about it, like Data and Lore, the memories of Data, if you just transfer those memories into Lore then becomes Data with additional personality.
Right. It's a good way to put it. And I think that's in a way kind of what we ended up with too, because the ultimate result was a character that cares like Data but talks kind of like Lore. And
he's able to joke.
He's able to joke. He's able to use contractions, things like that. We get Jack Crusher. So they hatch this plan to try to take over the ship again, and they send Jack Crusher up with basically a Star Wars grenade. What the hell was that?
Thermal detonator, yeah.
Thermal detonator. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, because oh man, Franks is going to be so pissed at me. Goes up on the bridge with a thermal detonator and threatens to blow up the ship. And meanwhile, all this stuff with Data is going down. They're trying to get Data to basically tap into the ship and gain control, right? That's the whole reason that Data is having this fight with Lore in his head, so that he can gain control of the Titan. And meanwhile, Jack is on the bridge and he's trying to talk to Vadic and, get her to explain like what's going on and just get any information out of her, while also like threatening her and being like, well, hey, this bomb might not blow you up, but if it goes off, it'll blow me up, and now you won't have what you want.
Yeah.
Which is valid.
Yeah. It's a valid threat.
Well, it turns out it's not a thermal detonator, Brad. Turns out it's like a personal shield from Halo.
Yes. And big enough, because Seven, so all the bridge crew gets like pushed into like the side room, and Seven's like, no, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna figure stuff out.
She wants to accept the consequences for her actions, because Shaw made her feel like, part of the reason they were in that circumstance was because of her actions.
Yeah, definitely. And well, of course, the shield is big enough to protect her and Jack. And all while after Data takes over, he then like vents the bridge.
Yeah.
And all of Vadic's crews like flushed out, and so is Vadic out into space.
They literally get sucked out into space like that. And poof, Vadic is dead.
And she floats and hits the Shrike and shatters into like a billion pieces.
Right.
How'd you feel about that?
Sudden.
I was disappointed.
It was a little anticlimactic.
Because it didn't feel like this whole big epic death scene. It was more of just like, oh, too bad.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we need to move on.
And
how can we eliminate Vadic? Oh, I know. We'll just open the bridge. We'll open the doors to the bridge into outer space. Just vent it.
The only thing I could think of is that she's not really dead and she'll just be back. But no, didn't they destroy the Shrike?
They destroyed the Shrike.
They destroyed the Shrike at the end of the episode too.
Yeah.
So I don't know how she's going to survive.
She's not.
Or what.
She's done. So. That's the end of Vadic. And I just like, for such a powerful character and such a powerful performance, it was just, I don't know. I felt like it kind of did her a little bit of a disservice.
Yeah.
There wasn't that like grand finale.
No, it was a bit of a letdown.
What I think would have made more sense is if her and Jack like got into it, had some sort of like, Professor X versus Magneto fight.
Yeah. Some sort of fight sequence towards it, but no, unfortunately it wasn't.
Right.
And
then he could have sucked her out into space.
Yeah.
But
where else were we then?
Well, after that, the crew gets together and everybody sits around the conference room table, just like old times. And they start talking, and they have a moment where they're basically reminiscing about how good it is to be in each other's company. And then Deanna Troi says, well, I think it's time I met Jack because the moment I walked on board the Titan, I sensed a deep darkness coming from him, and we need to get to the bottom of this. So she puts on her counselor hat, and she joins Jack in his quarters and tries to gain his trust and says that she'll be there to walk through the red door together. And the episode ends as they open the door.
Or the handle, at least.
They put their hand on the doorknob.
Okay.
And the voice whispers Jack's name.
What'd you think of this episode?
I think you summed it up pretty well earlier when you said that there was so much going on. And it felt like because there were so many different things happening, like not a lot of it had a chance to breathe.
It was kind of funny. I watched last week's episode and then was like, oh, super excited for this week. And then I watched this week's and I was like, I'm disappointed. And I was like, it felt like it was maybe even directed differently. So I looked it up and I was like, who directed this? Is this two different people? No, it was actually the same person.
Yeah. All season, I think they've been doing pairs of episodes together.
And it surprised me because to me, they felt very different between the two.
It's been tricky, man. I don't know. Like, I like the tone of the two episodes, but like, I definitely felt like they were trying to make it so that the crew felt like it was at a disadvantage in this one, like really hopeless in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I do think that they succeeded, but they rushed the ending so quickly that it felt like the impact was a lot less than it could have been. Right. And I think it really does just boil down to they just started running out of time because now we have to, like, it's episode 8 and we still don't know what the hell's going on with Jack Crusher. We don't know what the plans for First Contact Day are. We don't know what any of this stuff is and what it means and where it's going and who the face is. There's so many questions that remain unanswered and we have 2 episodes to answer it all. And I'm concerned.
I'm hoping that it's not a situation where they really should have had 12 episodes, or hell, even like 11 episodes. And then we get to the end of it and we're like, man, there was clearly points of a rush. And I think this is unfortunately, this was an episode, actually a little bit of the last episode in this one too. It was really kind of like, it felt too much going on and they didn't take enough time to really properly, flesh it out.
Right. A big part of it is they're trying to give each member of the Next Generation cast their proper due. And I'm fine with that, right? Like, you don't have 7 seasons and 26 episodes per season to flesh these characters out like they were originally, right? We have to get everybody caught up onto what's been happening with them for the past 30 years in 10 episodes or less, right? And that's really complicated with, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And for some characters, it works better than others. For Geordi, I think they did a fine job of putting a stamp on where he is mentally and what he's been up to, right?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think they did just fine with him. But a character like Data or Troy and Riker and their marriage, and specific, it's a little bit more complicated. So you need to have that time. I think they need better time management for that.
The only thing I can think of is that because they appeared in season 1, they felt like they did enough during that and they didn't feel like they needed to go too far deep in this one.
I mean, okay, I could agree with that assessment. I don't know if I would agree that that's the best way to handle it, though.
Oh no, I don't disagree with that part. I just thinking, I think that's kind of where their mind was.
That makes sense. That seems logical to me,
Yeah.
But I don't know. In any case, like, I'm still hopeful. I think, maybe we'll get lucky and the next 2 episodes will be longer. Maybe they'll be 90 minutes each.
I doubt that.
I do too.
I am interested to see where they go with it because there's 2 mysteries. What's going on with Jack and then who's this other entity? Like, are they going to give us enough closure for everything that's going on?
Right.
I think they did, the way they ended with Data, or at least in this episode, where he's merged, I'm actually okay with it.
Mm.
I think I'm happy to see where the character is, because if you think about TNG, Data's always been striving to be human. In essence, now he's human.
Right. I mean, he basically is, for Data anyways. So I don't know, man. Do you have any predictions for next week?
The only prediction I have is that they are going to do some sort of Jack being able to transmit some sort of disease into all humanity. That's the goal for it. I don't know why he could do it or how that can happen, but that's my prediction.
Any thoughts on who the face might be?
No, absolutely not.
What if it's like the Pac-Leds?
That would be the best. It would just be like, oh man, the Pac-Leds, Lower Decks got it right.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like what villains from Next Generation or the movies were big enough or bad enough that they could have some sort of a vendetta, like, or even from Deep Space Nine, is it like I mean, I heard some people joking around that maybe it's the Pa Wraiths. I certainly hope not.
Yeah, I guess you could do that, but I don't know. To me, like, I feel like that would be a loss because, well, I don't disagree. The Pa Wraiths are, really bad. But to me, that's Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And I get like the Dominion is intertwined into into TNG in some sense, in like the movies, like they even mention them there, but
right.
like I feel like that would be just like
same.
No, it isn't. I'm okay with them choosing like the Dominion as like the villain for this, but if they just do some throwaway character or some character, he would be cool, Gul Dukat.
Yeah, but dead.
I know. So who knows?
Right. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm looking forward to it though. It should be fun to find out. But my hopes are dwindling, Brad.
Well, we'll see. We're gonna have to see how this goes.
Right. So,
but let's give it a benefit of the doubt, and we'll tune in next time.
That's right, we will. So on that note, I guess we'll wrap things up, shall we?
Most certainly, sir.
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the finale of Picard Season 3.
Take care, folks. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prospect.
Prospect? Sure, let's do prospect.
That's what Majid would say, but he's not here.
Take care, folks.
Bye. Thanks for listening to yet another Star Trek podcast. We're part of the Retro Sessions Network. This episode was recorded on April 7th, 2023. It's hosted by Drew and Brad. And Majid, well, we talked about him a lot, but he wasn't able to join us today because he's a jerk. That's okay, though, because he handles our social media while Brad writes the synopsises for us, except when he doesn't. And I edit the show, except when I don't. Well, if I don't edit it, then how are you going to hear it? This is crap. That's not going to work. Anyway, we have music that was written by us graciously by the great, wonderful William Grobelar. If you'd like to check out his work, he's got a SoundCloud page and a YouTube page. We'll have links for that in the show notes. And you can hire him to do your podcast music as well. Of course, if you'd like to hire our artist, George Watau, he's got a Fiverr link. Check out the artwork he did for us. Turn us into Lower Decks characters. We love him for it. Thanks, George. Thanks, Will. We really appreciate your hard work. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Yet Another ST Pod. We're also on TikTok, too, for some reason. I'm not sure why. We're supposed to put out reels of our shows, I guess, or TikToks. I don't understand social media. This is why Majid handles it all. But in any case, follow us there and listen to snippets of our stuff and random postings and things like that. Of course, if you'd like to send us an email, you can do that as well, too. yetanotherstpod@gmail.com. And of course, check out our website, yetanotherstpod.com. Thanks for listening, folks. I'll see you next time.